Okay, so hopefully you have watched the part about making thumbnails in Photoshop. And what I want to go ahead and do is show you how you can start to build something that will be a useful tool, but then turn it into a function. And so what I want to do here is go into the dev folder, and I created a folder called gallery-function, and inside of that is where I stored my galleries with the animals folder and the fruit folder. And as a reminder, each of those gallery folders has a large thumbnail, or excuse me, a large folder, so it's a full-size image, and then there's the thumbnails folder, which is called thumbs. And that naming convention is consistent between all the galleries that I would have in here. And that's important, that the naming convention is consistent. Additionally, you'll notice that the names of the files in large are identical to the names of the files in thumbs. That's also very important. You don't want to have thumbnails that are named like, bunny_T, or, bunny thumb or chameleon thumb. You want them to be identical. So bunny, bunny. Also same file types as well. That's useful as well. Okay, so we've got our gallery folder. I'll just leave this open for reference. And what I want to do is, actually, let's go back up a directory. So we'll be in here. Yeah, we're in the gallery function folder. And I want to go ahead and take my basic PHP page, and I want to save it as something else. Let's do, oops, there we go, save as. And I want to save it in my gallery function folder, and we're just going to call this, for right now, we'll call it index.php. And so it's our basic page. Then we're going to change it to gallery function. And here I'm just going to put like an H1, and we'll call it gallery function. Alright, now I'm going to just kind of get started with some really simple concepts before we get into how to build the function and all that stuff. And the first one is, I don't know if you've watched a different demonstration yet or not that used the scandir function, but let's talk real quickly about scandir. Scandir is the function that will scan a directory, and it will create an array of all of the directory contents. And so one of the things that you should know right off the bat is, like, if you wanted to scan a directory and get those pieces of information, because it's an array, you can't just use the echo command. So what we can do is, let's just store, let's get rid of this, and let's start off by storing a list of images, okay, from one of these files over here, one of these folders over here. So let's just call the variable, let's call it image list. Oops. Okay, and we'll say that it is equal to the scandir of a specific directory. And so if you look at where this file is being saved, let's go ahead and save this index file. And you see here the file is here, okay? And the directory that we want to scan is going to be in galleries/animals, okay, /large. Let's just start with animals, and we'll deal with fruit later. So galleries, animals, large, okay? So let's go ahead and put that string here, and we'll say galleries, animals, large. Okay, let's save that, and then we'll go down here, and we have to do a print R, not echo, print R on scandir, or excuse me, on image list, because as I said before, it's an array that's being stored. And we'll see what comes up here, and I'll go ahead and I'll put this in pre-tags right now so that it will format the it'll format the array nicely on the page. Let's save that, and let's go ahead and test it in a browser. Okay, so localhost dev gallery function. Okay, and so here's what we've got. It's got the array of what's in there. Now, these two items are not, they're not hidden files, but what they are is they're file system references, and you're always going to see that. These are the ways that the file system makes self-references so that it understands what is the parent in this case. Well, this is the current directory, and the parent would be the ... So we're not going to want these. I'm going to show you in just a few minutes like how to get rid of this, but just so that you can see right now, it's able to build a list of the files that are in that gallery, so, or that are in that folder. So let's go back here and let's look at, before we move any further, let's look at how we're going to deal with this part. You want to make this dynamic so that you can configure this, and we're going to kind of do this in stages until we get to the place where we create the function, but otherwise it'll be a little confusing as to why we're doing what we're doing. But so for right now, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to set the pathways. Okay, so let me make a comment that says set and build pathway variables. Okay, and the first one that I want to do is go ahead and we want to figure out what the main folder is going to be for the galleries. And so let's just go ahead and we're going to make a variable called galleries, and we'll make it equivalent to the pathway of galleries. And you want to make sure to include that / because that's going to be important in having as part of the pathway. And then for right now, we'll talk later about how we're going to deal with changing this animals part so it's more dynamic. But so for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and make something called say images. And for now, let's just make it a static pathway to animals. Okay. And something else that we're going to need is a designation as to which place we're going to fork. Are we going to fork into the large folder or into the thumbs folder? So let's make paths for both of those. Let's start with thumbs. Oh, except we're going to change that to the word thumbs. And then we're going to go ahead and do this for large. And then the last thing that I want to do up here is I want to go ahead and build the pathways so that I don't have to concatenate all of these things together every time I use them. So here we're just going to go ahead and create something that says thumb directory path, and I'm just going to do it in camel case, so it's thumb deer path. And then we're going to go ahead and concatenate some stuff together. Galleries, dot, and then images, dot, thumbs. Okay, and then we're going to do the exact same thing for the large directory path, but I'm just going to change a couple of things here. So that'll be large directory path, and this part will be large also. Okay, so now what we have at least is we've got a starting place. And so when we have our scan deer here, we can actually take this out now and we can scan the thumb deer path. Okay, and oops, it's gotta match my camel case. Now the reason I'm doing the thumb deer path instead of the large pathway is because you really want to make sure that you have a thumbnail representation for any larger scale picture, because the thumbnail is going to be the first thing that they see. If you're missing a thumbnail, then maybe you don't want to show that picture. So we're going to scan first for the thumbnail, and then if it doesn't exist in the thumbnail directory, then we're not even going to get that as an option for looking at the larger picture. So it's really important that you make sure that you always produce a thumbnail for your larger pictures with this logic. Okay, so let's save this and let's just see that we still have what we have here. I'm going to refresh the page. It should still look the same, except now we've got this other thing called DS Store. And again, it starts with a dot. So even though these are technically not hidden files, they're hidden references to the file system, this is a hidden file. And this is something that happens typically on a Mac. You're not going to see this on a Windows computer unless you've brought files over from a Mac. It's a little, sort of like a little database reference that Macintosh computers will do, and they'll put a hidden file in there called dsstore. I'm going to show you in a little bit how we're going to get rid of all instances of anything hidden that's going to find a dot, and it's going to get rid of it out of this list. Okay, so to do that, let's jump back over to our page that we're working in, and I'm going to go ahead actually and put a comment here. I like to comment my stuff up, so we're going to say build a list qualifying images from the thumbs directory. Alright, and then this is just for testing purposes. And I'll put remove later. Okay. Alright, so now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set ourselves up for getting rid of those hidden files. So I want to go ahead and I'm going to initiate an empty array for unwanted files. I should say file name listings. Okay, so basically those are hidden files. Just do it like that. And then I'm going to create an empty array right now that's called unwanted. And then I'm going to make it an array that's empty. It has nothing in it. And the reason I need to do this to initiate it is because before you actually attempt to use an array in a loop, which we're going to do in just a minute, it actually already has to exist as an array. Otherwise, it'll give you an error message. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. Nothing's going to look different on our page yet. Alright, and then in the next section, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a loop that is going to, it's going to loop through image list. Alright, and what it's going to do when it loops through it is it's going to find, let's say to find, files whose first position in the string is equivalent to a dot. Okay, so we'll say find files whose, we'll put 0, because that's the first, in computers or in arrays, string position is equal to dot. Okay, and if you look back over at our thing here, you'll see that the value of each of these keys, so the 0 key, 1 key, 2 key, they have a dot in the very first position, or in the 0 position of the string. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. Anything that starts with a dot is hidden. So we don't ever want something to be hidden to show up in our thumbnail list because it won't be visible. So that's what we're about to set up, okay? And what's going to happen is we're going to end up looping through this list. So we're going to look at this one and say, hey, do you have a dot? If you do, we're going to push you into an unwanted array. Do you have a dot? Yes, you do. We're going to push you into an unwanted array. Third one, or key number 2, it has a dot at the beginning. And then bunny doesn't, chameleon doesn't, dog doesn't, dog nose doesn't. So those aren't going to get pushed into the unwanted array. So I'm going to go ahead and end this demo here, because in the next one I'm going to actually show you how to start building that loop, and I'm going to explain it as I do it.